When have we ever had democracy? Is Thelma Cabrera Guatemala's most surprising politician? The indigenous activist explains why the country's democratic spring is an illusion and why, despite violence and corruption, she would consider a third presidential bid by Juice de Vries in Guatemala City. Thelma Cabrera wraps her tiny body around a large mango tree. It is a warm embrace between old acquaintances. As a girl, she walked past this tree every day on her way to the coffee plantation where she worked with her mother and siblings. On good days, she recalls, they could pick ripe mangoes off the ground. Today, dressed in flip-flops, a colorful check skirt, and a floral top, the 53-year-old may well be Guatemala's most surprising politician, even without her penchant for hugging trees. A Maya woman from the MAM people, Cabrera has run for president twice, in 2019 and 2023, on behalf of the Socialist Movement for the Liberation of People's MLP Party, with a manifesto promising a new plurinational constitution and advocating for the indigenous philosophy of El Buen Vivir, a sustainable and organic good life, instead of the large-scale agriculture that dominates the Guatemalan countryside. However, amid the increasing political turbulence that has rocked democracy in the country since last year's elections, Cabrera has no reason to believe the radical change she calls for will happen in Guatemala under the new Social Democratic administration of Bernardo Arevalo. In the first round of the 2019 election, she unexpectedly came in fourth with almost 500,000 votes, an extraordinary feat for a woman from a marginalized indigenous background. In May last year, the Electoral Tribunal upheld a decision to bar her candidacy just 3 months before the public vote, in a move many in Guatemala considered politically motivated. Along with Cabrera, other opposition candidates, including Carlos Pineda, a frontrunner in the race, were excluded on technicalities ranging from alleged errors in documentation to violations of electoral law. But both election campaigns showed that Cabrera has great political potential. She believes that is why last year she was prevented from testing her popularity again. We would have won in the first round, she says. The only opposition candidate with a pro-democracy message allowed to remain on the ballot was Arevalo, the son of the former president and democracy champion Juan José Arevalo, who surprised everyone by making the runoff against the former First Lady Sandra Torres, winning with a landslide of 60.9% of the vote. After decades of corruption and growing repression, especially in recent years under the conservative presidents Jimmy Morales and Alejandro Giammattei, it seemed the democratic spring had finally arrived in the Central American country. Cabrera does not share this enthusiasm. In her view, she has no reason to believe in radical change will happen in Guatemala under Arevalo's administration. He deserves the benefit of the doubt, Cabrera says. But as an indigenous woman and lifelong activist, her expectations are low. When have we ever had democracy in Guatemala? Never. Cabrera says she has seen the same pattern with every new government. They co-opt the image of the indigenous and the peasant. But nothing changes, she says. Cabrera does not share this enthusiasm. In her view, she has no reason to believe in radical change will happen in Guatemala under Arevalo's administration. He deserves the benefit of the doubt, Cabrera says. But as an indigenous woman and lifelong activist, her expectations are low. When have we ever had democracy in Guatemala? Never. Cabrera says she has seen the same pattern with every new government. They co-opt the image of the indigenous and the peasant. But nothing changes, she says. Other indigenous movements, such as the Quiché governing body called the 48 Cantons of Totonacapan, have openly supported the incoming president and expressed their hopes for his future government. Yet Arevalo immediately came up short when he unveiled a cabinet of 14 ministers with only one indigenous member. As almost half of Guatemala's population of 17 million identify as indigenous, the president has missed a historic chance, say representatives of the 48 cantons. Cabrera was not surprised. Let the people find out by themselves with what class of person they aligned, she says. She believes most of Arévalo's voters will face disappointment over the next 4 years. He promised to rid Guatemala's severely weakened democratic institutions of corruption. But his room to maneuver is limited. In this one-chamber parliament, his Semilla party won just 23 of the 160 seats. And the judiciary remains in the hands of those he promised to get rid of. Attorney General Maria Consuelo Porras, whose ministry has led unsuccessful attempts to ban Semilla, has refused to resign and remains in post. According to Cabrera, Arévalo has already been effectively blocked by business and conservative elites. They wouldn't let him assume the presidency just like that. First, they had to tie his hands very well, she says. Cabrera remains an activist, but her political future is uncertain. She asked her followers to cast a null vote in last year's elections. As a result, the MLP lost its only member of parliament. Without representation, the party was recently dissolved by the Electoral Tribunal. Gone is the name, as well as its striking volcano logo. It is a big blow for the Codeca movement. The grassroots organization will have to build a party from scratch again in the coming years. On top of that, Cabrera, its most influential leader, hesitates to put her famous face on the ballot again. The campaigns were physically and mentally draining, she says. But as in 2019 and 2023, the party's assembly might call on her again. For Cabrera, refusal is not an option. If they ask you, you have to do it, she says. We are fighting for the long term.